Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me, bless his holy name. This will be the second part of our revision of my previous interview with Father Joseph Iannuzzi, and I'll be releasing the latest interview with him after this one. And as the channel has a lot of new subscribers, I think it's also a good idea to share these things with the new people that are here. And again, just as it was in the first video, I won't be doing a lot of commentary here, but simply sharing the explanations provided by Father Iannuzzi. But before that, I would like to share this very short clip right here. You know, we've listened to various priests talking about this before, how someone's traumatic past can also be the door to the demonic, and I'm not going to elaborate that here, but I think what this woman says right here really shows what the exorcist talked about before. Check this out.
Because I was raised as a Satanist, and because I was raised with the idea of, revenge. And if somebody does something to you, I mean, my father wrote it in the Satanic Bible, if someone smite you on one cheek, smash them in the other. Don't turn the other cheek. You smash them in the other. You retaliate. You get revenge. And if you teach this to your children, and you're not kind and compassionate to your own children, and you do something that jeopardizes their life again and again, but then at one time that is really very precise and very clear, what do you expect? What do you expect? Do you think that you've taught retaliation, you've taught revenge, you don't expect that that's going to then come your way too, if that's what your message has been all through the development of your child? So I honestly felt when I left the Church of Satan, anger, hurt. I mean, I went through all the myriad emotions, and it took me a very long time to sort out all of my emotions, but my immediate instinct was, I'm going to be a damn worse Satanist than you can even imagine, to my father, and I thought, not only am I going to sever ties with you, and I'm going to look into the origins of all the lies that you've said, and I'm going to look into the origins of even terminology and jargon that you use. And for example, in the Satanic Bible, he's got a list of gods and demons and things that he considers satanic, but that's ridiculous, because so many of those have nothing to do with Satanism, and it's just his misinterpretation, I would say, of really what he was doing is he was taking a Christian idea of deities such as Kali, the Hindu Kali, or the Egyptian deity of Set. He was taking a Christianized interpretation of these deities and just, again, inverting it and saying, I'll satanize it, I'll make it all about Satan then.
If you'd like to watch that full interview, there's a link to the full interview in the description box below. Anyway, now let's get back to the first clip in this revision of my interview with Father Iannuzzi. So we'll start with this. When those devil worshippers are performing whatever rituals or satanic rites, what about their guardian angels? How do they feel about it? And if these people go to hell, what happens then?
We find the answer to this in the writings that are endorsed or approved by the Church with its official seals of approval, namely the Imprimatur and the Nihil Obstat, from the saints, the writings of the saints that are approved by the Church. And we find that the angels weep when we do something sinful. We're all given a guardian angel. And this is a teaching of several saints, Saint Alphonse de Liguori and others, at conception. Now, some people may be given more. Padre Pio addresses this as well, depending upon their mission, their universal mission and vocation in the Church. So naturally, the Blessed Virgin Mary had many angels accompanying everything she thought, said, and did, and bringing these divine acts that she performed that were sinless, that participated in God's one eternal act to the throne of God to increase the accidental glory of not only themselves, but the saints in heaven, and alleviate the souls in purgatory sufferings. Now, our guardian angels, we all have one guardian angel. And when we do something sinful, it causes them to weep. Why? Because they are pure spirits. They have no stain, no imperfection in them. They are pure emanations of God's love. And when they see sin, or they experience it, and they have to because they're always by our side 24/7, even when we sleep, they lose, in a way, some of that accidental glory that they would have otherwise received had we done something good. So we affect them as well, not just God. So they weep not only for God's sufferings on account of sin, but because of their own opportunities lost to grow in the glory of God through our good acts on earth, which are replaced by sinful acts. And you mentioned something about Satanists whenever they do rituals or something like that. What do their guardian angels do? Yeah, this is really a travesty, because some of these souls may be lost for all eternity, and their guardian angels will carry that with them for all eternity. That is the loss of the soul to whom they were entrusted. But the guardian angels are not blamed by God if a soul should not follow the will of God or lose its own immortal soul to Satan, because they are commissioned to do exactly what God asks of them, and that is to light, to govern, to guide, to protect. And the letter to the Hebrews speaks of the angels and says that we don't serve them, they serve us. Now, why is that? It's because, and this has to do with why Lucifer rebelled against God in heaven, because Jesus, according to the teachings of Saint Polycarp, who was a disciple of Saint John the Evangelist, and the disciple of Polycarp was Saint Irenaeus, according to Polycarp, Saint John the Evangelist taught that God revealed to Lucifer before he became evil or rebelled against God, that the second person of the Trinity would assume a human and not an angelic nature. And Satan did not want to serve a rational being that was inferior to him intellectually, which we are. So he said, I will not serve this plan. And Lucifer did not enjoy the beatific vision. Had he passed that test and accepted God's plan, he would have been admitted to the beatific vision, because once you enjoy the beatific vision, you cannot sin. So you see, Lucifer still could have sinned, meaning he was not yet admitted to that beatific vision. And therefore, the letter to the Hebrews, when he states that we serve, I'm paraphrasing, we serve God and the angels serve us, it's because, in part, of what St. Paul says, that in the end we will judge angels. So even though the angels surpass us intellectually, rationally, because of the incarnation of Christ into human nature, we surpass them in nobility. And therefore our guardian angels will always carry that loss of a soul if it goes to hell through unrepentant satanic rituals. And but remember, even though it carries that loss, there's a certain joy in the fact that God's justice is impeccable. So if a soul is lost, it's not the fault of the angel, it's not the fault of God, it's the fault of that soul. And God's justice is glorified in heaven as much as his mercy. So they don't, let's say, they don't live in a state of sorrow in heaven, the guardian angels. They rejoice in the justice of God as well.
And then the next one is about those in heaven. Will they be sad if they know their loved ones, their children or husband or wife or relatives are in hell?
That's a good question. Are those who are in heaven enjoying the beatific vision aware of those who are in hell? Only by a special dispensation of God do the souls in heaven have knowledge of things that occur not just in hell or people that exist there, but things on earth and people who do the good and bad deeds they do on earth, especially if it's a relative or a spouse or a loved one. This answer is found in the writings of Saint Catherine of Siena, in a work entitled The Dialogue of Divine Providence. And the best translation I recommend is by Alga Therold. It's published in the early 1900s, 1906, 1907, around there. And in it, Jesus and the Father, both of whom reveal themselves to Saint Catherine, state that there is no sorrow in heaven even if, by its special dispensation of God, a person enjoying the beatific vision knows that its spouse or child is in hell, there's no sorrow. Why? Because in heaven, everything is perfect, including every decision of God that God permits and that God wills. So if they rejoice in heaven over God's mercy, they equally rejoice in his justice. They glorify equally his mercy and his justice.
I also asked Father Iannuzzi about something that St. Faustina shared in her diary before, that a lot of the people are in hell because they did not believe that hell exists.
Okay, so the question about Faustina and her stating that one of the shocking things she acknowledged when she was taken to hell and having witnessed 7 tortures is that nobody there believed. Sorry, let me rephrase that. That what shocked her the most is that most that were there did not believe that hell existed. Now, how is this possible? Again, we go back to upright intention and bad intention. If a person sins not knowing it's a sin, the sin is either mitigated or inculpable. There's no culpability attached to it. It depends on the sin. Joseph Ratzinger, Pope Benedict XVI, before he was coronated pontiff, wrote about abortion, and it said that a person who commits abortion commits a grave sin if their intention is improperly formed. They were never taught that this is a human being. They think it's just a mass of tissue, and they commit the abortion. They still sin, but it's mitigated because of their ignorance, all right? But the sin remains in this case because it's a grave sin. If it's a venial sin, the culpability may not exist depending upon the level of ignorance. Souls that are in hell and did not know there was a hell are those who were culpably ignorant, okay? They have a conscience that God gave them that tells them to do good and avoid evil without any formal instruction. For example, how did you know not to kill your parents? Who taught you that when you were a child? If nobody taught it you, why didn't you do it? Because something in you, the voice of God, your conscience said, don't do that. It's really, really bad. Same thing with killing someone else, torturing animals, whatever the case may be. There are certain things we don't do. And in the measure we violate that conscience within us without any formal education, we sin. So Jesus tells Catherine of Siena, in that same work, The Dialogue of Divine Providence, that in the Old Testament, from the time Adam and Eve were expelled from Eden till the time Christ opened up Abraham's bosom where the just were awaiting the Messiah, souls were going to hell. He even tells her they went to hell between the time of Adam's expulsion and the giving of the law through Moses. 2,000 years had passed with no written law. So the question is, how were they judged? How could they go to hell without having a law? The law was the law of their conscience. And in the measure they gravely violated that, they merited different degrees in hell. And in the measure they respected that, they merited different degrees in heaven. They would go to Abraham's limbo until Christ opened up the gates, early gates as they call them, to heaven.
And then earlier, Father Iannuzzi talked a little bit about accidental glory. So here's further elaboration, what he means by accidental glory.
Okay, let's take an analogy which always helps to make it accessible on a practical level. Consider, I'll use what Mother Angelica used. Here you have a nun without any formal theological training, and yet she had a penchant to be able to bring down in practical terms some theological truth. And what she used was a sunset. She said, okay, suppose you're sitting down and you see a sunset and you enjoy the beauty of that vision you're beholding. You may hear the warbling of the birds. You may experience the aromas of the flowers, etc. That doesn't change your essential glory, meaning the fruits of your own meritorious actions, but it impacts accidentally your glory. Now, these are philosophical terms, accidents and essence, substance and form. We use this for the Eucharist as well. The accidents are the external, the bread and the wine. They don't change, but the substance of the bread and the wine does. It is replaced. The substance of the bread and the wine at the moment of the consecration is replaced by the substance of Christ's body, blood, soul, and divinity, whereby it is substantially God, but accidentally what it was before, the bread and the wine. So when we speak of increasing the accidental glory of the angels and saints, what we're talking about is impacting their eternal glory for all eternity due to no merit of their own, but due to our merit. That's the difference. Their essential glory is their own merit. The accidental glory is what is given to them on account of another's doing. Christ increased our accidental glory, so did the Blessed Mother, so did the angels and saints, through their protection, their guidance, their illumination, their intercession, etc.
And finally, well, if you've been watching the videos here for some time now, you know that my thumbnails can be quite scary sometimes, but the contents within are not always the case. Perhaps it was in the beginning of this channel, but not so much now. Anyway, I asked during this particular interview his advice for young parents these days raising their children in a society that's very curious about the occult and witchcraft, etc.
Yeah, the advice I would give to young parents today who are raising children in this woke culture is to be very vigilant. Be mindful of everything your child has access to on the internet, on the cell phone, on the iPad, on the screen of the computer, whatever it is. Television, cinema, what friends they hang around and what friends expose them to. Because today there's a curious movement, a movement of curiosity to the occult, to the spiritual world, to necromancy, invoking other spirits through seances, Ouija boards. They do this out of curiosity, and it can open up a portal that can yield dire results. So the parents' job, responsibility before God until they reach the age of maturity, of adulthood, is to be very vigilant with their children. Everything that enters a child's eye, ear, mouth, comes out of its mouth, influences it very much. And the parents have a very big responsibility to not just be vigilant, which they ought to, but to pray every day, consecrating their children, their families to the Immaculate Heart and to the Sacred Heart, and teaching their children to do the same. Teaching them to wear the brown scapular, teaching them to wear the miraculous medal, teaching them the value of the Benedictine cross on the medal, teaching them the value of the scripture, the crucifix, sacramentals that protect us spiritually and physically.
Well then, that will be all for the video this time. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us, and hopefully all of you have learned a lot from this revision. The same goes to all of you who have listened to this before too. And if you like what we do and you'd like to support us, I left a link to our PayPal donation in the description box below, and from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for your continuous support, contributions, and prayers. And until the next one, thanks again for watching, and may God bless you.